This is the Investor Connect podcast program. This is Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of the show, in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, private equity, family offices, and many other investor groups for startups and growth companies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you for joining us. Well, hello, this is Hall T. Martin with Investor Connect. Today we're here with Alexander Varvarenko of ShipNEXT. Alexander, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Martin.
What was your background before investing in early stage, and how did you get into this investing sector?
Well, Martin, before I turned 18 and I chose my shipping career, I was a software developer myself. So I was programming games and software in my school time, and then I thought to myself, how more advanced can computers get? And I thought I should move on and do some economics and maybe some engineering stuff. So this is how I joined shipping. And over the years, I've built an international shipping group of companies. I worked in Belgium, in Ukraine, and I have now offices in Hamburg, Paris, Genoa, Dubai, Odessa, and Limassol. So this is a shipping company, very diversified. And with the money we have, we started investing into different fields. And in fact, IT and software developing was one of it.
And so for people who are starting to invest in these early stage startups for software and shipping, what's your advice for them? What should they look out for?
Well, today you have about 100 or more different startups in transport and supply chain field alone. So, of course, you should very much take care of who you're dealing with, what the person's background is. And of course, you probably know as well that 99, roughly percent of all projects or startups turn out in a failure. So it's very difficult to find the right one, and that's of course the biggest challenge.
So when we look at blockchain and investing in blockchain, how do you see the industry evolving? Where do you see it going?
Well, blockchain as such is of course something that will definitely happen overall in different industries. Of course, a lot of speculation is going on things like cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and all. And of course, it gets the main industry players a bit reluctant. But it's inevitable, has been in primitive form, but has been happening before. And it's definitely a way forward. The reason for blockchain to evolve is because in the large industrial players, they're already too big, and sometimes they are stopped by regulatory ways to grow further. But they still need a way to interact. They still need a way to use their economies of scale and cooperate. And blockchain is a very good, sophisticated way. This is why it sometimes uses the word trustless in it, because it needs an algorithm-based solution, a very transparent and reliable way to cooperate.
So for those who want to invest in the blockchain, what do you think is the right investment thesis? What should they look for in a specific blockchain beyond the usual check the team out, do the due diligence? Yes, that's there, but what area blockchain should they look for and go after?
Well, I will tell you our path in blockchain as such. We, of course, evolve in the blockchain in supply chain field. And just to give you a little brief outlook, before I started ShipNEXT, I already had invested into startups, one in the field of social networking and communications, and the other one was a minor one. And eventually I used the team to develop a revolutionary product, which, not to say disrupts, but let's say transforms completely the shipping sector. So what we have developed, and for that we needed a unique set of skills, including, not limited, but including linear programming. This is quite unique for US and Europe and in Asia. I can touch that a bit later, but linear programming and AI and machine learning to actually teach a computer to replace myself, to replace all my stuff in a 1 second algorithm. It doesn't mean that people are not needed anymore. It just simplifies all the routine work and allows the commercial managers I have, the commercial staff, and all the other people to use their human skills, their creativity, language skills, communication skills in finding the best solution. Because all the rest of the routine work was then replaced by an algorithm. And this is what we created. We created a kind of Uber for shipping, an algorithm which finds any ship, any suitable ship for any cargo anywhere in the world in just a second. And that laid base for our next step. So to answer your question, the most important things for blockchain is to have an open source code. And that is very challenging because you have to understand that all the startups in blockchain, they have to be developing an open source code, which sometimes is not the case. They have to strive for a decentralized solution. It shouldn't be an app. It should be a decentralized solution, something that should blend and create an ecosystem. That's another very important topic in the blockchain. It should be trying to reach a sort of an ecosystem. An ecosystem is achievable by critical mass, and that's also very important. So all these, when you get a project based on all these very important factors, and to top off with an algorithm is very important. Because algorithm creates an environment which is transparent and trustless, let's say. Yeah, and I still try to avoid that word, but it is like that. Because you trust an algorithm. You should not trust each other. You should be trusting an algorithm your relationship is based on. So when you collect all those 5 factors together in one project, I think it has a very good chance of being successful.
So why does it have to be open source? That brings a lot of challenges to the table that other groups don't have to deal with. What's the benefit of open source?
Well, it has to be easily integrated into new, reliable participants of your blockchain environment. It has to be something that should be open to new participants of your ecosystem.
Can you describe more about linear programming for those who aren't familiar with it, and that includes me?
Yeah, in fact, our next step, we started off matching one cargo to one ship from one port of loading to one port of discharge. However, with the algorithm that we created, we are eventually going to build a real-time container booking system. So what linear programming does, it puts any business problem you have, any life problem you have, so to say, in a formula. So to put it in simple, if you want to buy coffee for your office tomorrow, you can, of course, do the guesswork, or you can build an algorithm which would include all the real-time databases you usually use in your head to estimate how much coffee you would need, how many people you have, how many of them drink coffee or tea, what's the weather like, how many are on vacation, on business trips, is it a working day tomorrow or not, things like that. And if you put it in or build it in a very sophisticated manner, you will get a pretty exact number at the end.
But you have to have quite a few real-time databases. Do those exist in the shipping industry already, or do you have to create those?
Well, by creating an ecosystem, and again, this has to be an open source solution to get all the members in. And this is what we are actually now doing. We are getting the ports in, integrating their live data. We are getting it from satellite systems, from trucking companies, from shipping companies, from our clients, the industrial groups and traders. Of course, the more we get, the more efficient is the space. I will tell you where the science comes from, but now it's becoming very popular in US and Europe, and larger companies like Maersk, they're also trying to find people with such skills. It was first used in practice in the late 80s in the planned economy, so to say. It was the Soviet Union. However, the problem was that there were no satellites, no computers, and no two-way transparent communication. So a lot of bureaucracy that all led to a collapse of this planned economy. However, it was based on paper planning. And if you were a producer somewhere in the eastern part of the country, you had a perfect plan built on to sustain the whole economy. However, if you failed on it, the only way to get the whole economy recalculated was next year. Today, with satellites, with computers, instant communication, real-time databases, you can have it running pretty efficiently. So this is what we are, in fact, implementing in the supply chain.
And so what software tools exist today in the form of OSs, languages, applications that help you build these applications?
Well, we use several. I wouldn't be able to give you all of them because our CTO is the one to ask. But of course, the first one we used was JavaScript. However, we do build our blockchain solution at the moment on Ethereum. We are, though, looking at other ones like EOS. We are open to other solutions as well. So far, I think these are the main ones. As I said, I wouldn't be able to give you all the names out of my head.
In what state do you think the tools are in right now? Are they very robust and mature, or are they all very new and nascent, just starting?
No, I think we are all ready to integrate. Of course, things like everything starting from corruption to just being a large company, or just not ready to acquire or to absorb new technology, down to in fact falling for larger, more famous, but not necessarily capable of building anything companies out there. And that, of course, drains some of the bigger industrial groups. I keep giving this example to some of our clients. I mean, there are companies who would be happy building something for you and be happy with the result. But there are other construction companies that just never succeed in getting to the final stage. They just like the process of building too much. So you should be also careful whom you entrust your beginnings in blockchain or any digital process, because sometimes companies just with great names out there, but they sometimes lack the ability to get the client to the final destination, to where they have to get soon enough. And that's what scares some companies. They're just afraid of large costs. However, if you look at it, there are a lot of very good projects out there, and if you bring them all together, because they are ready to collaborate and to partner up, you can already build some very fascinating stuff in the supply chain, in transport, but also in other fields.
So, what are some of the challenges that prevent people from completing the application? Where do you see the risk in this space?
I would say the risk in the space is that larger groups start building their own solution. It's like reinventing your bicycle, and nobody ever finishes. You see, again, blockchain is about creating an open source solution. When you start building something for yourself, you can eventually get somewhere, but then you should be also ready to integrate into other solutions. And that's very challenging. This is what companies will have to somewhere outgrow and get to understand how IT and software business works sometimes. You have to be able to cooperate.
So, you need industry level tools that all the players can access versus everybody reinventing their own wheel in order to make this work. Is that right?
Yes, I'll give you an example. I mean, to launch our ShipNext eventually instantly on day one, I used all our internal database of clients, cargoes, connections. And when we launched this algorithm, all my clients suddenly started matching all the shipping lines or all the shipping companies. So that's disruptive in a way. But on the other hand, I proved myself, I proved my colleagues, I proved the industry that in many ways, people don't only grab onto a solution. They still need people to communicate. It's like you having a camera in your telephone. It doesn't mean that all the photographers are eliminated. Or you having a website to purchase food. You still go to groceries or to a supermarket. So, it doesn't mean that when you have a disruptive solution, it will kill the human involvement. This is what we've proved with our project. We launched this algorithm. It already gets you the solution within a second. But you still see a lot of people trying to use the human touch to it.
And so, in the space of applying blockchain into the supply chain for shipping, where do you see the immediate opportunities to pursue in addition to the one you're working on?
These are things like reliability. Certainly, shipping is a very inefficient, very gray industry or sector of the transport industry. Millions and millions of money is being lost due to fraud, corruption, and all other factors. And another one is inefficiency. Sometimes you have to ballast. It's like taxi in the old days. You have to call a taxi whereas there is another one just around the corner. And then suddenly you have Uber. When you click on a button and an algorithm helps all these taxi drivers to use the algorithm in finding the best solution out there. So one of the very important factors we bring into the space is elimination of ballast runs, cutting on fuel consumption. Things like that, and of course this helps fight pollution in a way.
What kind of cost savings do you think your app is going to bring to the market, given you're putting more efficiency into it?
Oh, we are talking billions because it's a $1 trillion industry. Already today, a lot of clients, by using it, eliminate a day or two or more out there saved on ballasting. I mean, ballasting of a ship is anything from 10,000 down to or up to $40,000 a day. And of course, you save a couple of days and you save, pretty much close to $100,000 on ballast costs on larger ships. So that's already a big saving. And of course, I don't want to say that this was the aim to eliminate intermediaries, but sometimes there are very unfair and intransparent intermediaries, and we of course tackle them too. I mean, copy pasters. We welcome exclusive brokers, but we don't like when there are 10 or 5 to 10 brokers in the middle. We think that the space should be cleaner.
There's a tremendous cost savings. In the final minutes that we have here, what else should we be covering?
Well, I think it's very important to cover the topic of blockchain as such. People should be taking care of what they invest in, and there are a lot of companies out there who say they're part of this new generation of builders, software developers, or solutions, but there are many of them who do not actually know where they have to bring you. So you have to really take a look at whatever you're investing into. Who stands behind that project? Has that person built anything before he's going to disrupt or transform, or actually a better word is even evolution, not revolution, but an evolution of this industry or any other industry? Is that person really the person to evolutionize the industry or not? Has he built anything before you invest into his or her startup?
Well, we appreciate your taking time. How best for the listeners to get back in touch with you?
Well, you can find us on shipnext.com. My email is ceo@shipnext.com, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Well, very good. Well, we'll be glad to share this with you and put it out on the web and have more people come back and talk with you about it. I want to thank you for taking time to talk today.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.